So the trend continues. Poor villain of the week type issues, but we do meet a long-term character. You could almost glaze over issue 28 as much as any of its surrounding issues, but it's important for one particular aspect, the introduction of a future ongoing character, Banshee, even if he does look a little like a leprechaun. Yippity potatoes. Anyway, contrary to his future self, Banshee is a bit of a troublemaker and is using his sonic coolness to fly over places, create a racket and steal paintings. What, you might say? This isn't the Banshee that we come to know and love. Well, yes, sorry, it is. I can't help it if you have a bad boy fetish. Why don't you go pen pal with an inmate or something? Oh, and there's this guy called the Ogre, who by the name makes you conjure up images of somebody ugly but large and strong. Well, they got the large and ugly part right. This guy looks like the villain from a British 5-minute cartoon show.
Wait, that's him there?
Yep, the only word I would use to describe him is portly. I mean, everything about him is round except for his butt. Why you look so flat, butt? So the crux of this story is Mimic is still trying to learn how to be an X-Man while still being a major dick. The Ogre and the Banshee are working together, but there's some conflict there, and the Ogre reveals he is working for something called Factor 3 and he wants McWheels.
Just because?
Just because. Roll with it. The Banshee takes out the X-Men with a fair swoop of his sonic power. The Ogre kidnaps McWheels. The X-Men chase and the Ogre is like zap, blam, splack and slap. And just as he's powering up, McWheels once again saves the day by rolling into his ankles.
Oh, come on. This is now beyond a joke. Just let the kids win something.
So the Banshee enters the fray a second time, but the X-Men have had time to prepare by stuffing ears with magically scientifical cotton wool, and the Mimic copies Banshee's power and gives him a taste of his own medicine. They capture him. The Ogre tries to kill them all, but is fought off by Mimic. Yes, the OG5 still can't do anything, and the Banshee is like, hey, I was only doing it because the Ogre was going to blow my brains out with this headband. Yippity-dee potatoes. Issue 29 is one of those villain crossover things. So the Super Adaptoid was created by AIM, who fought the Avengers. Basically, he's a 10-foot tall android with the powers of Hawkeye, the Wasp, Captain America, and Goliath. Anyway, he's hiding out in the cave near the X-Mansion. Psyche gets all mopey about his eyes again, but I'll admit this little scene actually pulled a few emotional strings. He bitches about it a lot, but he actually goes into his whole dilemma of how dangerous his eyes are and how he can never have a normal life. Kudos to the writers for actually making this scene work this time.
If only I could hold him to make him feel better.
But in his pity, Psyche lets loose a blast that starts an avalanche that wakes up the Super Adaptoid. Not much else happens, and the base of the story comes down to this. The X-Men are ice skating, Bobby comes across the Super Adaptoid and freezes him. Mimic is still a jerk. No one believes Bobby when he says he just fought a giant android dude. The giant android dude turns up. No one apologizes to Bobby for not believing him. The Super Adaptoid, who wants to make an android army and use the X-Men as his first progeny to do so, takes out the OG5 X-Men.
What? Again?
And Jerkface, Mimic, has a several-page battle with the Super Adaptoid, but for a moment thinks that having his own powers would be cool and is almost ready to join the Super Adaptoid, but decides ultimately that he doesn't want to be a slave to the giant android man. Does something that temporarily sucks both of their powers out and then forces the Super Adaptoid to retreat and fall into a big bit of water. We start amidst the action. A giant hand is hovering above the X-Men, drawing them in like chips of wood, caught in the grip of a surging current.
What?
I know, who talks like that when they're being attacked by a giant freaking hand? Irrelevant angel, that's who. Anyways, a Doctor Strange wannabe appears over them and is like, hiya biatches, I'm the Warlock, get it? Because magic, and I'm probably evil, and oh hey girl, what are you up to? I can give you everything girls ever wanted.
Not all girls want the same thing.
A unicorn.
Okay, you got me there.
So Warlock kidnaps Token Jean and McWheels, while the irrelevant Angel tags along because he can fly and they all get jet bikes. Serious, I'm liking this guy. If he turns out to be evil, I'm gonna be so disappointed. Anyway, he also used to be Merlin the Magician apparently, and he's fought Thor before, and he's got a bunch of henchmen because it's the 60s and that's what they do. And alas, he is evil. How can we tell? Because he's a complete dick and he just wants to take over the world and bang Token Jean. Not necessarily in that order, so he sets fire to Irrelevant Angel's wings and walks off with her. Meanwhile, McWheels passes out after trying to get Warlock out of his head, and the other X-Men turn up to get stuck to the floor. Warlock will hold a tournament, and if they win, he will call off the invasion. So what follows is a basic medieval tournament. Beast fights some soldiers, there's a guy on a horse with a laser lance, and the X-Men wipe the floor with him and pursue the Warlock, who up until this stage can pretty much do anything until he gets chased and has to reverse to zap zap zap, but manages to shield himself somewhat from Psyche's pew-pews. Also, Beast pulls the man's cape over his head, which is the second time we've seen that move, but it is always funny. But pinned down, he reverts to his comatose state, and the X-Men win again. And for those curious who this guy was, I did a Google search, and obviously entering Marvel and Warlock, you get some way more important characters that pop up, but his real name is Mahayogi. I don't think he's much of a player. Once again, we start in the middle of the action. There's smoke, and Irrelevant Angel is in trouble, where we find out that it's literally smoke and proverbial mirrors because they're in the danger room. Anyway, Token Jean's still in college, and we discover that her only real attribute is that she's a girl and boys like her. And there's this old guy who does poetry with a yo-yo. Goddamn beatniks. Anyways, one of Token Jean's friend, Ralph, used to work at Stark Industries and had a fall and hit his head. Now, he's a scientist and has built a suit not made of iron, but of cobalt. Ooh, for all you losers who don't know the periodic table off by heart, Cobalt sits at 27, one higher than Iron Man, so it must be better. Anyway, he's done the suit and becomes evil, maybe because of the fall. It's not quite clear. Psyche and Token Jean turn up, and Cobalt Man is all like, I want to kill Tony Stark, not you losers, and flies off. The X-Men are like, we got this, and they tussle, but that extra proton goes a long way. But well, to cut a boring story short, Iceman freezes Cobalt Man's chest piece, and Psyche pew-pews it, melting the ice and forcing water into the circuit board, which shorts it. So, as it turns out, it really was just the bump to the head that made the guy crazy, and everyone crowds around and decides, all good, and it ends like a sitcom. Ha 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 ha!
Hey.
Yeah, hey. Didn't need you for this one. It was a quickie.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Hey, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this approach, please like and subscribe for more videos. And remember, if you're interested in reading the full story, the easiest way is to sign up to Marvel Unlimited at marvel.com/unlimited. I need to breathe.